What's up, you guys? This is KCG. I am back, and this will be part one of VeggieTales God Wants Me to Forgive Them 2004 VHS tape. Why part one? Well, you'll understand why in this video. Where's the volume? Here it is. Dun, 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 dun. So do your part and show forgiveness from your heart. Big Idea logo. As always, 1998. Here we go. What do we got? What do we got? The making of God Wants Me to Forgive Them.
Christmas 1993, we finished Where's God When I'm Scared. It was me, Chris Olsen, Robert Ellis, and Mike. And killed ourselves, collapsed into bed, slept for a couple of days, and got up, and all of a sudden I realized, what are we going to make next? We need something else. I was paying these guys, and we didn't have anything to do next. So I had written a puppet skit back in Bible college where I met Mike, called The Forgive-O-Matic. And I thought, okay, let's, I've got this puppet skit, I'll just throw that into production. I said, here, make this. Gave that to Chris and Robert to make while I figure out, a longer story. And so we started making that, which ended up replacing the silly song. The very first episode had the Water Buffalo song. The second episode had The Forgive-O-Matic, which I thought, this is cool, we'll do something different, every time here, which turned out not to be what our fans wanted. But it gave them something to do. And then I sat down to write the next thing, and way back in the very beginning, before Where's God When I'm Scared, one of the ideas that we threw around was spoofing classic literature. And we'd come up with a list of, Bridge Over Pumpkin Pie and, War and Peaches. And one of them was The Grapes of Wrath.
Phil and I went out to a restaurant, Thai restaurant, and actually, talked about what would the second segment be, and came up with this idea for Larry's Lagoon, sort of a Gilligan's Island spoof.
Gilligan's Island isn't necessarily considered classic literature. I guess that's where we realized that we were both bigger fans of pop culture than we were of classic literature. And I guess that's probably kind of a turning point for VeggieTales. Because we started out, all right, what's next? Grapes of Wrath. And then next is Gilligan's Island. And we never, although we made it back to classic literature with Madame Blueberry, which is based on Madame Bovary. And Hamlet.
Well, just guess where you think my ships are.
Oh, okay. To be.
Not to be.
Drat.
And then Mike and I had a discussion because we decided that Larry was going to crash the boat because he was daydreaming. Because he's a dreamer, he doesn't pay attention. And we're talking about what's his daydream. What is Larry's daydream that gets him in trouble? And Mike's idea was that Larry daydreams that his nose floats off of his head and floats around him. And it distracts him.
Yeah, see, I thought that was much more creative and original than, smashing icebergs. I don't know how that would have worked actually now in retrospect. It's probably better that he was an ice-breaking captain.
We made God Wants Me to Forgive Them in 1994, so we're still, a year before Toy Story. And we set out, okay, we're going to build a little desert island with palm trees and stuff, and that was much more elaborate than anything we tried to do before. And we now had, I had a nicer space to record audio in because there was a little vault in this office that we had rented, so we'd go back in the vault. But we were right by the train line, and so if you're listening to any of those early tapes, we'll be in the middle of a take, and then somebody will say, train, and then everyone just stops talking. Tape kept rolling, and okay, we're clear, and then we, hi kids, we're back into it again. About this time, people in Chicago started hearing, there are these guys up on the north side making videos, and so they started sending us voice tapes. And one of them was a guy named Jeff Morrow, who turns out was the voice of Diggum from the old Sugar Smacks commercials.
I'm so happy to see you forgiving each other.
Which is pretty cool. And had done, Folgers in your cup, and just had this huge voice. Like, oh, I love this voice. And so we cast him as Palmy, the palm tree, with the little coconuts that sing backup, which are both my wife. My wife is both the coconuts. And Jeff was the palm tree. And it was just so cool, because Mike and I could never, ever do a voice
that big and rich.
I remember when Jeff Morrow came in to record as the voice of Palmy.
It makes me want to sing. Do you mind?
And in one take, it's done. I'm like, now I see why there's professional voiceover talent, because they're really good at what they do.
You know that in love we can forgive. It is the only way to live.
God Wants Me to Forgive Them, show 2, that was so long ago. I didn't even have a computer then. We were just using a sequencer off one of my keyboards. So to do any sort of scoring, I couldn't lock to picture. We literally were using a stopwatch. So that's a very embarrassing period for me back then, because I listened to some of the music, more at the score, if you can even call it that. I mean, we had very small segments of, okay, here's a little bit of tension, let's do something with that. And, you know, just very rudimentary beginnings of scoring at that point. I had been arranging for years and writing on the side and working at a church, taking songs every week and arranging them. So it seemed pretty natural for me for Phil to come forward, or for Lisa or Mike at times, and say, okay, here's a start of a song, what can you do with it? And I'm kind of hearing Dixieland, or hearing polka, or hearing classical, and it's like, oh, okay, kind of grab from my ideas of what that means and what instruments that means, and just start going from there and seeing what comes out. Grapes of Wrath had that fun car in it, which that was a fun experience, because we actually used my sampler and created all the car sounds, which way back then, that was almost, well, that was about 10 years now. That was, it was a stretch for us, because we hadn't done much of that yet. So I sampled a lot of different sounds from our sound library, wrenches and ratchets and squeaks and engine noises, and then we actually, I think I did something like something with my mouth that then we ran through some effects, and maybe for the car sound, and layered 10 sounds on there and created this little chugging car sound.
We must hear that bump.
A story, if it's really effective, a film, a book, whatever, if it's really effective, it has a theme. It's not just about, like, Lord of the Rings isn't about hobbits and orcs. It's about valor and self-sacrifice. Those are the themes. The plot is hobbits and orcs. And for a story to be really effective, it raises a central question and then answers it. And that's really the basic format of VeggieTales. It's the format of all good storytelling, is a story that can raise a central question, and we do it very literally.
Now, Marco had a question for us. He said that when his baby sister does something that makes him mad, and then she says she's sorry, well, Marco's mom says he needs to forgive her. Well, why does he have to forgive?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Now, the purpose of the story is to demonstrate the answer to that central question, not to just say it, like you would in a classroom, but to show it in a life, in a story. Here's the answers in this story. But because we're dealing, often with 3- and 4-year-olds, then we'll come out at the end and say, if you missed it, if you didn't pick it up from the story, here's what we learned. Sing the What Have We Learned song. Here's the answer to the central question. And the answer is the nugget of truth. It's a summation of a theme that's so simple that even a 4-year-old can pick it up, put it in his pocket, and carry it around for the rest of his life. And that was key from the very beginning. The kids need to walk away from these stories with a lesson that they can use.
That's one smart grape.
We started getting fan mail really as soon as people got the first show, Where's God When I'm Scared, which was really, really cool. And some of the first letters, just blew us away, because they loved it. They just loved it, and their kids loved it, and they couldn't wait for the next one. And it was really the coolest thing, because we're starving trying to make the next one. We have no idea if the first one is any good, and all of a sudden we get this, really great feedback that my kids were afraid of the dark. They're having trouble sleeping, and they watched this video like 2 times, and now they're not. And to see immediately, you work so hard, and then to see the impact right out of the gate, that you can have with the story, that has biblical truth in it. Wow, all right, onward! That was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.